Before you were taught how to think, you were taught how to obey, not by schools, not by governments, but by the people who claimed to love you the most. Every time you stayed quiet to avoid punishment, every time you hid what you truly felt just to keep the peace, every time you sacrificed honesty for approval, another piece of your identity disappeared. Friedrich Nietzsche believed most people never truly become individuals. They become obedient extensions of their parents, their culture, and their fear. And the terrifying part is that society rewards them for it. The obedient child is called mature, respectful, easy to deal with. But what if obedience is not a virtue? What if it is the slow death of individuality? This video is about how parents unintentionally train children to abandon themselves, and why so many adults spend their entire lives trapped inside personalities they never consciously chose. A child enters the world wild, not evil, not broken, wild, curious about everything, emotional without shame, fearless enough to ask uncomfortable questions. Children naturally challenge reality. They touch things they are not supposed to touch. They say things adults would never dare to say out loud. They cry honestly, laugh honestly, express anger honestly, and for a brief moment they exist without masks. But the world around them usually cannot tolerate that for long. Very early in life, the child begins to hear commands. Be quiet, stop crying, don't embarrass me, because I said so. Good children obey. And slowly, the child starts making a terrifying discovery. Love is conditional, not always consciously, not always intentionally, but enough to leave a permanent mark. The child notices that approval comes when they suppress themselves, when they become easier to manage, less emotional, less honest, less difficult. So they adapt, because children will sacrifice authenticity long before they risk abandonment. That is how the mask begins. Nietzsche believed society turns people into what he called herd animals, human beings trained to seek safety instead of truth, comfort instead of individuality, obedience instead of self-discovery. And according to his philosophy, this conditioning starts at home. Most parents do not raise children to become independent thinkers. They raise them to become functional, predictable, socially acceptable. Again, usually not out of cruelty. Many parents are simply repeating what was done to them. Fear passed from one generation to the next. Parents who were punished for questioning authority often become adults who feel threatened by independent children, not because they hate freedom, but because freedom feels dangerous to them. A child asking why too many times can make insecure adults uncomfortable. A child expressing anger can feel disrespectful. A child challenging traditions can feel threatening. A child refusing blind obedience can feel impossible to control. So the child learns another lesson. Being accepted matters more than being real, and eventually they become the good kid, the obedient one, the child who never argues, never causes problems, never says what they truly feel. Adults praise this child constantly. So mature for your age, so respectful, so well-behaved. But underneath that obedience, something darker is often happening. The child is disconnecting from themselves. They stop expressing anger because anger creates tension. They stop expressing sadness because sadness annoys people. They stop expressing individuality because individuality risks rejection. Instead, they become experts at reading other people's emotions, experts at pleasing, experts at adapting, experts at becoming whoever they need to be in order to remain loved. Years later, this becomes adults who apologize for everything, adults who cannot set boundaries, adults who feel guilty for saying no, adults who constantly seek validation before making decisions, people who do not actually know what they want, because they spent their entire childhood learning what everyone else wanted from them. Nietzsche despised this kind of psychological dependence because a person incapable of questioning authority can never fully become themselves. They can only become useful workers, useful citizens, useful followers, but never truly free individuals. Nietzsche believed many people are not moral because they are virtuous. They are moral because they are afraid of punishment, afraid of rejection, afraid of isolation. So they obey rules they never chose, live lives they never wanted, accept beliefs they never examined, and society celebrates them for it. Think about how many people spend their entire lives trying not to disappoint their parents. Even as adults, they choose careers they hate because it sounds respectable, stay in relationships that make them miserable because it appears stable, hide parts of themselves because they fear judgment. And deep down, many of them still feel like children asking for permission. Nietzsche believed one of the hardest things a human being can do is become an individual. Not because individuality is rare, but because obedience is rewarded everywhere. Schools reward conformity. Jobs reward conformity. Society rewards conformity. The people who ask too many questions are called problematic. The people who challenge systems are called difficult. The people who refuse to follow the script are often isolated. That is why so many people abandon themselves early in life. It feels safer, but safety has a cost. Because when you spend years suppressing your real thoughts, emotions, and instincts, eventually you no longer know who you are without external approval. And this is where the real damage appears. Many adults look functional on the outside while internally feeling empty, not because they failed, but because the personality they built was designed for survival, not authenticity. They became what was acceptable, not what was real. Nietzsche warned that people often confuse obedience with goodness, but obedience itself is morally empty. An obedient person can follow wisdom or follow destruction. History is filled with ordinary people committing horrible acts simply because authority told them to. That is the danger of raising children who never learn to question. Once someone is conditioned to obey automatically, any system can control them. Governments, religions, corporations, ideologies, even social media. The obedient mind becomes easy to manipulate because it fears independent thought. And maybe that is why genuine individuality feels so rare today. Most people are terrified of standing alone with their own beliefs. They would rather belong to the crowd than risk rejection. Nietzsche respected people who broke away from the herd, not because they were perfect, but because they had the courage to think independently, to create their own values instead of inheriting them blindly. But becoming an individual is painful, because the moment you stop obeying automatically, conflict begins. Parents may not understand you anymore. Friends may distance themselves. Society may label you selfish, arrogant, rebellious, or unstable. Because people are comfortable with predictable versions of you, not authentic ones. And maybe the hardest part is realizing how much of your personality was built out of fear. Fear of disappointing others, fear of abandonment, fear of not being enough. Many people never confront this. They spend their entire lives performing, acting successful, acting happy, acting normal, while secretly feeling disconnected from themselves. Nietzsche believed transformation requires destroying the false self first. And that process is brutal, because you are not just changing habits. You are confronting years of conditioning, years of guilt, years of fear, years of obedience disguised as morality. But without that destruction, individuality never emerges. You simply remain a reflection of expectations placed on you before you were old enough to resist them. Maybe becoming an adult is not about becoming more obedient. Maybe it is about recovering the parts of yourself that were punished when you were young. your curiosity, your intensity, your honesty, your ability to question things. Because the world does not need more obedient people pretending to be alive. It already has millions of them. And maybe the most disturbing question is this: how many of your beliefs, fears, ambitions, and decisions are actually yours? And how many were programmed into you before you even understood what freedom meant?